Well, I'll admit it. I don't just have one. I have many. And what I'm talking about is hobbies. Things that we do in our spare time that bring us joy. And yes, I tend to have an abundance of these. I collect toys, I play the violin, I teach myself hieroglyphics and teach it to others on Sunday morning. Free plug for doodling on purpose. Overall, hobbies are very healthy. They're an extension of our emotions, of our self-worth, and in a lot of ways our soul. Music is soul plus sound. Literature is soul plus words, as they say. And while there are unhealthy hobbies out there, for the most part, what you engage in your leisure time is something that's going to bring you joy. And if you're on this channel, you're most likely, like me, a fellow toy collector, an adult toy collector. Now, this is a bit of an oxymoron, right? Adults playing with kids' product? Well, whether you're into vintage toys that came out when you were a child, or you like buying modern items that recreate those, it's going to take up a lot of space, and it's going to take up a lot of time. And there's also the fact that a lot of people just can't relate to this hobby. It seems strange, for lack of a better word. Why would an adult collect toys? These are child playthings, as Woody would say. Well, fortunately on the internet, there are a lot of resources, and the internet honestly has become a way for this community to come together for a hobby that's, for the most part, done in isolation. And I'm really grateful for all of the channels out there and all of the collectors online that are able to come together to share our passions. But it doesn't make it any easier to become part of this hobby. So, as an example, I worked for some very large toy companies. I worked for Mattel for about 10 years, and when I would be confronted by executives who would ask me about the adult collector market, I would usually have to explain this in terms of something like 40-Year-Old Virgin or Big Bang Theory, give them something in pop culture to relate to, because the idea that adults would collect action figures, even for people in a toy company, was hard to wrap their heads around. I would usually tell them, whatever it is you dream about in your spare time, or whatever it is you do on a Sunday afternoon, take that passion, that excitement, and multiply it by 100. And that's what it's like being a toy collector. And this did work for a lot of executives and a lot of marketing folks, but there was always a pushback. Even when creating product that was going to be sold at a convention or online that was bypassing the retail channel, which is a kid-oriented channel, there was always a hesitancy. Why in the world would an adult buy something that's marked 4+? I mean, isn't this a toy that appeals to children only? Okay, maybe this is a bad example, but hey, it's a retail toy, and there you go. That's how you get adults and kids to buy a figure. All right, well, toy collecting, like many things, is not without a sense of irony. In fact, toy collecting probably has a much higher percentage of irony because, here you go, to collect toys, you have to be an incredibly mature person. I know, let that sink in for a minute. But unlike almost any other hobby out there just really isn't room for immaturity. Okay, fine. Cue the clip.
Don't patronize me, Scott.
Oh, that never gets old. What a maroon. Anyway, the point being is, yes, there's going to be some immature people out there that get very emotional because, well, any hobby is emotionally driven. But the thing about toy collecting, unlike anything else out there, we have to be incredibly patient. And I don't mean just, waiting around for next week. I'm talking decades of waiting in order to enjoy our hobby. So why is collecting toys like, going into the unknown? Why is it such a hobby that only really mature people can handle it? Well, unlike things that are physical or activity-based, shall we say, like, underwater basket weaving. You can do this, you can engage in the activity, and at the end you have your basket. With toy collecting, it's all about a very specific place and a very specific time. You can't just walk into a toy store and buy an entire collection of every Spider-Man villain ever. I mean, you might be able to find an eBay auction, but this is my cantina setup, right? In my office of 3 3/4 Star Wars figures. Well, what you're looking at here is 20, 30 years worth of collecting in order to have this small setup. These figures weren't released at once. They were released over decades, and they don't get re-released. So, yeah, you have to stay on the ball and really be in it for the long haul. My Marvel Legends collection of X-Men figures, some of these include figures from Toy Biz, some of these include figures from Hasbro, and I'm still waiting for figures. For example, my X-Force figure collection, there's Cable in the middle, I still don't have a Feral figure to complete this team. But I'm going to wait, because I'm going to hope that before prices hit $50 a figure, Hasbro will let us complete this team. I don't know if they ever will. They may not. Collecting toys is like strapping yourself to a rocket. You're basically signing up for a hobby that might not ever have a payoff. You could spend years, decades, buying a toy collection, hoping you'll have a complete team. And then that might never happen. And you wind up with a shelf that just isn't complete. And that's frustrating. And you accept that as part of the hobby. There's almost nothing else like this. If you're into collecting movies or sports memorabilia, much easier to do. For another example, looking at Star Wars again, there were 92, 93, 96, depends on how you count them, action figures released in the 80s. Well, there's one character that hasn't been re-released in the modern line. This guy, Simu, one of the Imperial dignitaries. And I'm still waiting for him to complete that original 92 set in the modern line. And it's literally been, like 30 years since Power of the Force 2 launched? And we still don't have this guy? They still haven't completed the 92? I mean, I have bins and drawers full of Star Wars figures. Hundreds, if not thousands of them. And I still don't have a complete set. Waiting and waiting for this. Will it happen one day? I hope so. But there's no guarantee. I may never get a Simu action figure in the modern line and never be able to complete this. Am I going to walk away from Star Wars when this happens? Heck no. Of course, one of the solutions people come up with is if there's not an action figure of someone they like that they want to complete a set. I'm a big fan of Eric Larson's Savage Dragon. I haven't hid about that at all. I'm pretty vocal about how much I love this comic book. And if you're not reading it, you really, really should. But there aren't that many action figures for Savage Dragon, and I've made some of my own, customizing Marvel Legends. The powerhouse there used to be Captain America. Brainy Ape in the back used to be Hulk. And it's one way of supplementing a collection where I just pretty much know I'm never going to get those toys. But customizing is one thing, and it's great if you have the talent for it, but a lot of us, myself included, really do like official releases. There's something about an actual toy from a company. All of this, though, comes together with the idea that things that are worth doing take time. Things like gardening and watching flowers grow. Heck, watching children grow. Learning a musical instrument. We live in a world today of instant gratification. Nobody wants to pick up a book these days. They almost don't even want to pick up a Kindle. They'll just, read the summary online and write their school essay based on this. The idea of sitting down and actually reading a book, everything has to be an instant on. There can't be a delay. We want it now. We want all of our movies and TV shows to be able to be one click away, and we can just stream whatever we want. The idea of even waiting to watch a whole season of something is gone, because it's all going to be out either one dump or over, a couple quick weeks. You can order things online and expect same-day delivery. This is just mind-boggling for people who grew up in the 70s or 80s, where we had to wait weeks, not months, for something to come in the mail. And, you'd have to go down to the record store, the bookstore, to get your latest releases. The idea of sitting at home in your underwear and ordering it, having it show up on your doorstep. I mean, modern living, but it has given us the idea that it's all about the experience, and toys are a very, very physical hobby. It's not something that you actually, sometimes go to an event. I mean, obviously there's Comic-Con, and there's, there's going on the toy hunt, and there's, big Midnight Madness runs. For the most part, though, toy hunting, toy collecting happens in isolation and doesn't happen as a public event or something you can share with other people. It's a very private, individualistic hobby. And we set up our own mini museums to celebrate the joy of this hobby. There's no team to join. There's no games to play. There's no victories that can be shared with other people. Unless, of course, you're just sharing your collection online. We don't have that. We don't have trophies that we get at the end of a season. Instead, we have a full toy shelf that we can look at, which essentially are our trophies. We can look at our X-Wing figures and say, hey, I have every X-Wing pilot Or, well, A-Wings are in there too. Okay, how about this? Every Rebel pilot. Again, this took me 30 years to do. Toy collecting is not an easy hobby. It takes a very, very mature person to be able to handle it. And it's ironic because we are buying children's playthings. But when you have the patience to be a toy collector, it's so rewarding and it's so much fun. And if you're new to the game, check out other videos on this channel. I do a lot of explaining about it. I hope you enjoyed this video and it helped shed some light on what's so unique about this hobby. Let me know your thoughts. Have you experienced any of this yourself? Please share this video. It's the best way to help support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.